Okay. So, I made it to Baldur's Gate 3's second act after multiple weeks of the first one, where the second act turns into Bloodborne.
Yo, that game's cool.
And oh boy, it's cool. But more than me playing that, what did you think of Baldur's Gate 3, Woolie? By the way, hey, I want to say it was a lot of fun to guest on the show.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. The high note exit always toss the dagger and run out of the room is always a good way.
Yeah, just leave a gun on the table. Did you know that he's getting more pies than you are? Goodbye.
Yeah, it was really cool. I think like I was talking about it with Reggie afterwards too, and like he definitely, like, I gave him some prep to like know, like, hey, this is going to be a lot of options. There's going to be a lot going on because, you know, he had no experience and you know, well, neither did I. It's definitely an intimidating interface to approach and learn as you go.
There's a lot.
Yeah, so I think I think we did fine for the plan, which was to just roll with it. Whatever the game does, we just go with it and see what it is. See what's possible. But like every time it's not your turn or is your turn in combat, and you're kind of like going through the wheel of options and using bonus actions or key, or you can move a little bit further, but now you can dash or you can't. That whole system is like, there's a lot to learn and a lot to get used to. So like for the first while, I think you're gonna just see me and Reggie just like, okay, hit the button, what's possible? If it's all grayed out, then I guess my turn is over. But
that's a fairly decent way of interpreting the action economy, which is like, what can I do? What is grayed out? Like, works.
Yeah, there's a lot that happened where I was like, oh, I guess my turn is over, but it wasn't, you know? Or I was like, oh, I moved, but actually your second action could reach a little bit further, you know, and things like that. So there's always just a moment of like, I know your turn's probably done, but I'm going to come back to the second character and just check to make sure actually it is. You know, and there's a million other things as well that are just, you have to just get used to this if you've never done it before. So pretty intimidating up front with that.
It's a completely realized, like, 5th edition D&D put into video game format, but like, so on mouse and keyboard and controller, there are various things that are easier or harder. There's just so many goddamn, like, actual actions and or variations. Like, it was last week, despite playing the game for like fucking 60 hours, that I was like, hey, how do you end concentrated abilities? You hold triangle on the fucking radial menu. Oh, okay.
Oh, just a different button prompt entirely. Okay.
There were people like for weeks on the game's release, like, how do I make everyone in my group sneak at one time? How do I pull out a torch for everybody at any given time?
Right.
And like various little fucking things.
So there's also I've talked about this in stealth games, but like whenever a game has a stealth system, there's like a million checks you have to go through where you're like, okay, hold on. What does the programmer of this game think that means? Because some games only care about line of sight. Some games care about whether you're in a crouching state or a standing state. Some games care about whether you're standing in grass or not standing in grass. Some games care about whether it's light or dark outside. And all of these rules interchange and interplay with each other, as well as sound effects, speed of running versus walking versus crawling on a slight tilt on the analog stick. There's so many different possible things that can be considered stealth that you can't know until you do it a couple times to realize.
So let me ask you
what the game's limitations are, right?
Did you figure out which of those factors are a factor in BG3?
No, I think
because some of the ones you mentioned are factors,
but some are not, right?
Okay, so here's the factors. How high is your stealth number? your skill, right? Straight up. Because when somebody looks at you, you roll to see if you stay hidden. Are you in line of sight? Line of sight's the biggest one by far, right? And then the third one is light level, which is why there's in darkness, out of darkness, and partially in darkness.
Okay.
That's your that's your criteria.
Because that moment when we crouched up and crawled into the abandoned building, there were, the thieves were and stuff, or the bandits. Like, there was a bit of like, okay, now you're in stealth mode. And then, like, I'm like, all right, these guys are having a conversation. Now, if I walk out into broad daylight, it seems like in some games that would be a really obvious move. But maybe in this game, if they're in conversation, then merely approaching the circle of influence will trigger the cutscene in stealth mode, So you're like, I don't know which one of the rules this game is going to apply. So that's just going to have to be rubbing your face up against it until you figure it out.
Yeah, it's line of sight, stealth number, and light. Those are the three.
Right. And similar to that also is things where archer accuracy is like, I'm like, so what affects this? If I get closer, does the number go up? It's like, yes, but then there's high ground. And it's like, okay, now was that door in the way or is it not in the way? And then like throwing thing accuracy.
Yeah.
So then
ranged attacks is high and low ground. It's within the preferred distance of the weapon and within the max distance of the weapon. So and then if they have particularly high defense.
So there's a bunch of stuff there where it's like, right, on tabletop we would just say this out loud verbally and then the DM would say whatever in response. But in the game system, you do have to kind of figure out what it cares about and doesn't care about. Because then you can overthink things and, jump to locations you don't need to if it doesn't care about that aspect of,
what I really like
whatever.
Is on the controller it's a touchpad. It brings up the hey, I don't know what something on this item means, and you click it, and it just provides you with this fucking explosion of tooltips that scrolls down. And it's like every single term on this description that could be a term you don't understand will be explained at some point. It goes, what's advantage? What's disadvantage? What's conditional? What's this? What's that? And but instead of being like, hey Jimmy, the DM, what does this mean? It's like essentially going like, go into your own miniature little player's rule book and look for yourself. There's so many interactions that I am still dealing with and understanding. So I told you last week, like I was talking to Paige, or maybe that was on my stream. Yeah, it was on my stream. I was like, Paige wanted to steal something from one of the druids. And I'm like, good luck with that. This particular druid's in a room with like 8 people. You'll never be able to break line of sight. And then she said, well, what if I turn off all the candles in the room? And she turned off all the candles in the room, and it broke everyone's line of sight because it was too dark. And then she stole it, and she got into an area, like she got into like a treasure vault area that took me like 6 streams to get into because I did the quest to do it, but she just broke in.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think so. Like that stuff always is going to come into play once you're thinking outside the box, and I guess what the limitations or lack thereof kind of are. Like if you were aware of the fact that you can stack a box, then you are aware of the fact that you can stand on it, then you get that the height of this barrier is not going to get in your way. But I think, so like the way Reggie kind of walked into it, like for me, I'm like, okay, I have some quote unquote none. I have some old ass outdated D&D knowledge with how things go. But with him, he doesn't have any. So I'm just thinking like if people that are unfamiliar with the genre entirely happen to turn this game on and jump into it for the first time, the onboarding aspect is going to be one where it's not like they won't know what to do. I think they just won't be being particularly creative inherently. I think you'll just be walking up to enemies and doing your default attacks on them.
I have had a
until
couple
the community
moments.
Aspect is like brought into play.
I have had a couple moments of like personal creativity in which I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. right? More often than not, I have had moments of dealing with an encounter and then afterwards being like, oh, I bet I could have done that more interesting. Like, so like in particular, there's a boss fight in which there's a stage hazard you can kill the boss with, right? I had beat that boss down like 80-90% the hard way before realizing, oh, I bet I could use the stage hazard. And then by the time I could get the boss to the stage hazard, I just beat it down.
You already did it anyway. Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
You don't need to fucking use the fancy environmental shit if you just hit it hard enough.
So this is a game that has Baldur's Gate 3 is, it's gone from early access into final release, and I know it's crossed the finish line, and they're going to keep updating it. But I think something that would be pretty cool to implement would be something that, because again, there's always there's an online community of people that can kind of talk about how creatively you should play these games and stuff. But whenever it's in the game, I always like when you can kind of hint at things, right? So I've been playing. I told you I went back to Darkest Dungeon 2, and I've been playing a bunch more of that because it's just I fucking love it. Something cool about that game is, you have a ton of classes and you have a ton of abilities that you unlock for each class, and you can play in a bunch of different styles, and the synergy between different characters is not always inherently obvious because you have to tinker and experiment with your builds to see what works and what doesn't. But something you get is there will be paths for each class that you unlock that change the abilities slightly to like custom grooves almost. Like this makes it so that you have a little less life, but you do more damage depending on where you're ranked, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the screen.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you'll get a trinket or an item for that class that says like when you use this ability, it changes so that you actually get you steal 2 of the enemy's buffs instead of like your usual thing, right? And so you'll get these little hints in the form of items and paths in the game that go, oh, if I want to start thinking differently about this approach, I can. And it's not outright telling you, like, here's another way to play the game directly, but it's kind of implying this is what you can start thinking about.
Baldur's Gate 3 does not do that.
Yeah.
It just has everything out for you to fuck with. There's a
sometimes
bunch
achievements will hint at like, oh, solve this thing in an unconventional manner.
People who didn't, the boss I'm mentioning, most people who didn't use the stage hazard only found out about the stage hazard because you beat the boss without using it, and it gives you an achievement. Hey, you beat the boss without using the stage hazard.
Okay.
And you go, fucking what?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
So yeah, there's I can think of like 4 or 5 things off the top of my head where, like there's a huge enemy fortress that's like, oh wow, it'd be really hard to fight just get on the ground and fight all these guys. But the building has like a bunch of rafters you can get onto and just hit people with arrows, and they have no chance of getting up to get at you. I'm thinking of 3 really, really tough level 5 guys that I was able to just charm my way out of it. But then after I charmed my way out of it, I looked at the area, and like the roof they were standing under could have collapsed, and there was like one faulty beam that had a hitbox. Right? The area. Okay, when you went to that little fucking temple, right? That had the bandits outside of it, and they were arguing,
and the trap,
like the block of stone that's above them, right? It doesn't point that out. It doesn't highlight.
But after the encounter, I went, oh, I bet you I know what that block of stone was for.
Did you break it?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. We shot up at the string, created the hole, and then Reggie went to the gate, to the door, and then deceived his way in, started a fight in there, and in the meantime, I split up and jumped in the hole because content, you have to.
Yeah.
And then we have a split battle where we're like, I'm fucked over here and he's dealing over here and we're trying to get back together, and it was kind of crazy, you know?
So I in my game, there's a third way in there. You go in through the back, you go in through the exit, and then you do all the tomb stuff first, and then you come out. And if you do that and you're coming out from the crypt, all of their dialogue changes and they start to freak the fuck out because something's coming up out of the crypt.
Okay. Interesting.
And they think you're like ghosts or something.
Nice. Yeah. So it would be too overwhelming, certainly, to like even imply the breadth of options you can get into. But like, if there was something that they got to at a certain point where, just like things that kind of imply things, you know, that to start jogging your brain, I think to think outside the box. That could be interesting.
Use your brain.
Yeah.
It's
fine if it's fine if you are like, I just want to do it this way, and I'm also online and I'm going to be chatting with other people who are playing this game, because you're going to get that experience anyway.
Well, so here's the thing, right? The system is built open, and I feel like a lot of these things you're not going to get the aha moment if a tooltip implied that maybe you should do it. Right? There's like getting a tooltip that suggests, hey, maybe you should try this.
No, not a tooltip. No, that's not. I definitely don't want it to be a thing that pops up overtly like that.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking of BioShock. I don't know if you played BioShock 1.
Yeah.
But you get your Electrobolt power, and then you see a bunch of guys standing in water, and then Atlas goes, "Oi there, boyo, they're standing in water. Did you know you could electrocute them in the water?"
Right.
And then you're like, "Oh, cool."
So when the camera pans back in that area and you go upstairs and you see the block that can drop, I mean, that's like signposted enough, right? That's a great example.
Yeah.
If you're having a conversation with a bunch of assholes and then there's a hippo in the water behind them, just washing its belly, just rolling around, you're like, okay, well, cool, right? That's fine. That'll always be the way to handle it in games. I'm thinking of like, I use the Darkest Dungeon example because it's like picking up an object and then within its lore or within its description, there's something there that makes you go, oh, I didn't even think about the possibility that you could combine this with that, and okay, you know, like maybe like a description on a spell is like, oh, the creator of this spell actually, you know, was known for this.
So I feel like there's too many actual options and too many variations on things to do for that to actually be useful. Instead, the only thing that I can think of is that you have to take the descriptions of what things do seriously. So that's not super clear the way I said it, but like when a spell in a game is like makes you invisible for 30 seconds and that, right? Your brain goes, okay, but it's invisibility in like game terms, right? So if I like fight someone or steal things, the game is going to snap to me and go, hey, stop right there, criminal scum, or whatever, right? When you turn invisible in Baldur's Gate 3, until you fucking touch a person, you are fucking invisible with all the advantages that includes, such as moving items, stealing items, moving switches, etc. Right? Unless they have detect invisibility, but that's a whole different thing, right? Like, I'm just thinking about today, this morning, I was watching the TikTok, and a gentleman came on going, "His Baldur's Gate 3 tips, haha." And I'm like, these are probably all garbage, but I'll give it a shot. And the first one in this man's video was, did you know that if NPCs get killed in a cutscene, but you attack, because you know there's an attack button in most interactions?
Right.
Like, if you attack before that happens, they won't be dead because they didn't get killed?
That sounds like it can break triggers.
They specifically mention a late Act 1 encounter where if you decide to interrupt the cutscene by attacking before some people get shot, you'll save them, and then the door that gets locked in the cutscene is open because the cutscene didn't finish.
Right. Even triggers that occur in game world that should be just cinematic transitions from one loading zone to another actually are affected by your decisions.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stupid shit like that. There's like later on, if you use a wizard in your party, you get to use something called counterspell, which is a level 3 spell. You get at level 5. If you fight a necromancer and the first turn of the necromancer is to, boss summon 40 guys, but you have counterspell on and just go, no, then the fight is no longer you against a guy and 40 skeletons. It's you against some guy that you're not letting cast spells. You just run over there and just whoop on him.
I feel like one aspect of the tabletop adventure that was fun that kind of captures some of this energy is like so like my history teacher back in high school, like he ran his D&D campaign in his class as well, and like he had his bigger, more professional setup. We were kind of off on the side doing our own little thing. But like there would always be like, oh yeah, like so many games ago someone did some wild shit and it kind of becomes like a fun piece of lore, and then that might come up in discussion at some point, like, or it might be referenced in some way, so someone at an inn might be talking about that crazy necromancer that walked around with dead bodies in his bag all the time and no one really knew why he did that, and that little conversation piece would come up in some way, I
totally understand what you're saying, Woolie. There are too many variations of these events.
It's just a thought that would be a really cool thing if they ever.
I have been playing the game for just over a month now, and I just this morning understood what. So if you look at a door or a chest, it has the sturdy descriptor.
Yes.
So what that means is you have to beat a damage threshold for it to take damage. Right? So if you can't lockpick something and you have a big enough person, you can just smash the chest to bits and get all that shit. But what if you don't have a big enough person? Well, you can just pick the chest up and put it in your inventory. Then you can go to a in-game cliff and throw it off the side, because fall damage is calculated as weight times height. And just pick, and just like, if you have no one who can pick locks, just take every chest with you and throw them off cliffs, and the fucking ground will unlock them.
If you're willing to like spend the weight of carrying that shit around,
Which, if you're a dumb, strong person that has no lockpicking ability, you can.
Okay. And now, but here we go. Game logic question. Does the game care about the contents being affected by the fall damage?
No.
Is that a thing? Right. So,
No, it does not.
That may or may not.
You'll get everything. There's no problem.
Exactly. So, and that's something that may or may not apply based on how they decided to program it. You never know.
Yeah.
No,
they
Dark Souls 2 says
easy.
otherwise, right?
The chest dimension is separate.
Oh, glass does break? Okay, interesting. There you go. Right.
I don't believe that.
Because I feel like a DM would be like, if you want to, and then you toss it, and then there'll be like, you hear a thud followed by the shattering of glass. Yeah, no,
the chests, the glass does not break. That person is wrong. Things are completely... the only thing that happens, and this is a real thing, if you decide to open the chest with a bomb instead of like with the literal bomb or like fireball or something, the burning ground effect on the ground will damage the items. Because
okay.
because now the item is out on the damaging floor, and then it'll take. Yeah. But yeah, no, you can smash that shit to bits and throw it off cliffs all you want.
Yeah. So anyway, that's overall though. Like, it is a system that I feel it's fucking cool. I just definitely want to spend time familiarizing and getting the gist of when it is in fact my turn or not, or how my my actions come back, and the exact cost of that, and just the ins and outs, the learning of the ropes, right? As you would in any game where you're provided with a ton of options right away. I am reminded of like onboarding in the first time I ever played Souls, where you're like, oh, okay, you can't just walk up to everything and swing at it like any other action game. You have to realize that patience and poking and stamina matters, and like, and in this case, we had, let's be real, like one real fight. The other fights were all kind of like, simple swing at it, the things going down in one or two. And in that real fight where like things can go horribly wrong and the environment is popping off and stuff, I ran into at least 3 or 4 moments where I had an idea, but it wasn't going to work out, And then it was like, okay, what else can I do if I can't do that? Maybe I can do this. And then it's like, oh, wait, there's a trap system where now my party member can't move. You can walk over to them and free them, but how does the exact nature of that system work? So there's a couple things there where I'm like, okay, I'm maybe sometimes I'm trying to think about like wild solutions to problems that you can actually just solve very straightforward.
So the best way that I can try and like contextualize that is every action you have in the game has a description of what it does, and thinking within thinking of those actions as and descriptions as your tools, as your toolbox to solve problems, and like I said, taking the description on that text seriously.
Yes.
Right? So like it's less about it's less about thinking outside the box and more like looking at the tools you have available and then being like, okay, what can I actually do with this tool as stated? Right? So dip weapon is a really interesting one. You read dip weapon and it says dip weapon into any surface like water or fire or poison or whatever, and gain that damage type on X turns. If your party member gets hit with fireball, you can dip your weapon into the party member and gain the buff.
Right, okay.
If you found like there's little candles just around, like totally useless candle, dropping items takes no turns, like no actions. You can, if your archer wants to drop a candle next to them, they can use bonus action dip and get 1d4 extra fire damage on their bow and arrow for like the whole combat. Because you've got a candle that you're dipping your fucking arrows into.
Dip it up, bro. That's pretty sick. So I don't have God. I don't remember the examples, but I remember when I saw Rebuke Undead, Turn Undead, and I'm like, oh, that's unlocking a memory of like that was a spell that could be exploited to shit by combining it with nonsense, like fucking casting that on or like it was on an object and then putting that object in a place to cause them to move, and then once they're moving you can kind of kite the undead into like a sheepdog, and like Turn Undead was I remember that being an access, like an opening point to breaking the system in ways that you otherwise wouldn't expect it to, and so I'm hoping that in this game you can do similar
The current
nonsense and chicanery with it.
the current most busted thing that you know what? Okay. I have thought about this in my brain in between sessions, and it should work the way I think it will. And I will look over in the chat, and they will tell me whether or not the game will correctly work in the way that it should. There is a spell called Sanctuary that clerics get, which makes you unable to attack, but it makes you unable to be attacked. It basically turns your character off for combat purposes for a little bit.
Okay.
There's also ability called Spirit Guardians that causes this massive AoE of little spirits to do damage around you. I bet you if I cast Spirit Guardians on myself and have a big wide AoE of permanent damage, and then cast everyone's already telling me it works.
Yeah.
And then put Sanctuary on myself, no one can attack me, but I'm just a big fucking moving AoE bomb that no one can interact with.
Nice.
Great. Perfect. It is my favorite thing to do with Shadowheart. That's what I mean. Like, things work the way they're supposed to work. Like, we have spent so many video games like looking at like this move lets you assassinate from darkness, but like darkness is actually like a binary state, and like this part of the level it looks dark but it doesn't count as the darkness tag, and so then you can't assassinate, and then assassinate doesn't do a full damage, it actually does like a damage multiplier instead, right? And all this fucking nonsense. It's like, no. Sanctuary says if I don't attack, no one is allowed to attack me. And this move is not an attack. Therefore, I should be able to combine them. Good.
I think I'm gonna need a logic lab. I'm gonna need an ability to lab the thought process a little bit. But I really like that.
You need 2 party members to do it. Oh, that makes sense.
I like that moment of like, okay, like of just like, yeah, like hold on, what if you could do this, you know? And then like testing that out and testing the waters and shit. Like, I love doing that in any game, really. In this case, if you can do that in a scenario and actually have
the lab in Baldur's Gate 3 is known as the quick save system.
Right. Which I'm not too sure how to approach, I suppose, because I'm like, I kind of want to fuck around and find out, but I also, because I'm like streaming and you're going with whatever your decisions are, you don't want to like, you know, futz with that too much, because I don't know, I assume there's some kind of code of
I've been quick saving and quick loading on like, hey, I bet this would work, and then sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work like the way I want it to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I didn't have quick save, I wouldn't have tried this zany interaction. Right?
Yeah. So like, I'm like, for example, like if I quick save and then I'm like, oh, you wonder if you can try this thing, and then you try it and it fails, you go, okay, reload, that seems fair. Versus if you quick save and then like, oh, I stepped into on a trap, unload that, I don't want to, you know, that element of surprise was like ambushed me or whatever. It's like, no, you should go with that
so like learning how to pickpocket people correctly took a lot of quick saves, because like it's a complicated system that has a lot of moving parts. Right? I'm a month into the game, and that's like, I'm like a third through. But I'm already like, I want to go back and do it better.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, I forget where I heard it. I think it was on the Giant Bombcast, in which they were talking to like somebody who had recently started playing games. And they describe like, yeah, I beat it, but like I want to do it again because I feel like I can do it better. Right? Like, there's a lot of situations that I look back on and like, I bet I oh, okay.
I can also tell
that I could do it more interesting.
I can tell right away too, by the way that tutorial end fight started, and by the way the little encounter with the dying Mind Flayer went, that there will also be moments of
kiss?
Yeah, no, there'll be moments of like, I want to do 3 things. Okay, here, let me just check this out quick before I do the other 2, and then you get locked into some shit, right? You have walked into the threshold that makes the cutscene occur, and that's another reason to be like, okay, hold on, quick save, you know.
I think the devs' realization of the type of game they were making in regards to this is fully on display when you discover that there are no limits to when you can save and load in the game. You can save the game in dialogue before you make decisions. You can save the game in combat at any time.
But once you commit to an action and you're looking at dice, you can't back out of that action.
Yeah. So hey, I didn't think this. Okay, you back out. Whatever. Like if you were a crazy person and you were romancing your vampire boyfriend and wanting to get the highest amount of approval in every interaction, you could quick save every time you talk to them and run through every option until you found the ones that they liked the best.
Yeah.
If you were a crazy person.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, when you were like, oh, you're botching it with Shadowheart.
Oh, I was botching it.
I'm like,
I botched it.
You know, there is a moment of like, fuck. No, I don't want to botch it.
No, play it through. Play it through.
Susie made out with a mind flayer. What the fuck?
Yeah, that happens. That happens twice, maybe.
Oh, big tongue. Oh,
it's a whole thing.
Damn.
I don't know. The game is just so like endlessly fascinating. Like even like every like half hour I encountered like some kind of like interesting little diorama of events. Like I had goddamn Talk to Animals on, and I convinced fucking a bunch of evil spiders to fucking unionize. and because I was an Oathbreaker paladin, specifically, I got the advantage on telling them you owe no loyalty to anyone. Like basically the only thing you have to lose is your chains.
Nice. Do you realize that your entire week-to-week review of this game is just recapping wild moments of unexpected creative outcomes?
Yeah, it's a great, it's like incredible.
Yeah, every like eagle eye view of the game or anything related to its release or anything technical just comes back to, man, I did this shit or I heard about this shit. And it's just telling stories of things that went down. Right. That's 100% of your review.
Yeah, no, there's technical problems. There's an NPC stuck under the floor in one of my town areas right now. And apparently I need to like hack the game to get him up above the floor. I don't know how to do that.
You didn't do that.
No, I did not do that.
Okay.
There's a character that if you kill a cow, will not spawn in the second act, but he's actually there. He's under the floor because for some reason his location is tied to the location of the cow, which is no longer there. So if anybody knows how to get Damon out of the ground, hit me up on Twitter. I would like to get him out of the ground so I can talk to him.
You don't enter like a hostile state when you get near, do you? Because the most annoying thing is when a game has an enemy that falls out, but you can't ever exit.
No, he's a fucking he's a blacksmith, and I can't talk to him. And it's like I would really like to talk to him because he's important.
Yeah.
Also, I'm deep enough into the game that I have started to see a little bit of how the sausage is made.
Okay.
And there's some real great through lines going through this game. So like, did you make it to the Grove?
I don't think so.
Okay, so there's a little town called the Druids Grove that is the first town, right? And you run into a ton of tieflings there. Like literally
I
like
think we
30...
saw it in the cutscene of the crash.
Yeah. So you meet like 30 people there, right? And everybody who makes it to the end of Act 1 will continue into Act 2. And everybody and most of the people who make it through Act 2 will continue in Act 3 because, of course, we're all going to the same place. We're all on the road to Baldur's Gate, right? What this means is that when I was playing my stream, and there were, some people don't catch every single stream, there are a couple people that were like, "Hey, Pat, what happened to so-and-so? Where's that?" And I'm like, yeah, you know what? They must have met with an unfortunate accident at some point during my stream. They might have it could have been an accident, but like the fact that there was an NPC that came to talk to me and was literally the only tiefling I did not meet at the camp, and had a line of dialogue of, "Hey, I was at the camp. I guess we kept passing by each other because we've never spoken. But and then they hit you with their introduction. Like it's it just goes.
I have to say, I went through a couple of circles with Asterion because it's like, okay, I heard about how everyone's like fucking thirsting up hard over this character.
And, you mean Astarion?
So that's it. Because I didn't hear the cutscene voice. I didn't hear any of that. I just saw the picture of the guy, and I saw everyone memeing. So I was like, okay, so this is gonna be like that, the same hot boy energy of any of the fucking multiple S-star rank Grand Blue, slutty boys. Ooh,
right.
And
no.
Yeah, and that's what I was expecting. I'm expecting gacha hot boy character energy, and that's what everyone's getting on about, right?
Yeah.
And then he opens his mouth and he's like, "Darling, it's Leviosa." Oh. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? How is this attractive, right?
Oh,
and then, but then you give it a minute, and I'm like, oh, it's Tim Curry in Rocky Horror energy.
Okay, so it's like me and Paige were talking about this, and we went and looked, and we found exactly what the inspirations are. That is one of them. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror is definitely one of them. The other one, to like down to the pants he's wearing, is Jareth the Goblin King from Labyrinth. David Bowie in Labyrinth. Down to the weird, like, codpiece pants.
Okay, yeah. So that's it, because I'm like, by any other metric, like, anyone who sounds like that is going to be revolting. But it's that energy. It's that, okay, right. Like, hot slut Brit dude. Yes, darling, of course.
Yes.
Fuck, right.
I think my favorite interaction with Astarion was like the very first one I had, where he got the drop on me, and I went, fuck it, melee, and then headbutted the shit out of him.
Yeah, I got him.
And then he like, oh, congrats, you didn't get the drop on nothing.
Because I also just my reference point on that voice also goes back to the SNL skit with the British dudes with the fucking long coats and the wigs going,
yeah,
yes, Lord.
So it says a lot that the first 3 party members that you are going to run into are like garbage people. Like, the first thing out of Shadowheart's mouth is fucking help me. The second thing is ew, one of them. Right. And the third thing is don't look at my shit.
Don't touch my box. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, well, to be fair, fourth guy, like Mage Dude, is just like, hey, I'm just kind of
Gale's
I'm a charming
cool.
dude. I'm here.
I sound like I'm from the IT crowd.
Yeah, and I got my nice little
and then you fucking you run into Lae'zel, and Lae'zel is part of the fucking green dominant like clan fucking society. And then Astarion is fucking walking red flag toxic motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm gonna need
Gale will eat your shoes.
I'm gonna need
Okay,
some
no,
time with these folks to figure out.
Okay, when I tell you that Gale will steal and eat your shoes, I'm not exaggerating. That is real.
He seems the most normal up front, but
He does, doesn't he?
but then also you pulled him out of a hole, so yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Will, and Will's just a good guy. Will's just a good guy.
Once you correct the error that the game's textures have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, games just like there's just so much shit in there. There's just, it fulfills the fantasy of playing a video game and going, hey, what if I did that? It's like I can really only compare it to like Zelda, like Tears of the Kingdom, of like, hey, would this work? And the answer is usually like, yeah, kinda, at least kind of.
But everything you do in a Zelda game will never have social ramifications because
that's right.
You don't ever. No. There's nothing like that. You don't talk to anybody. Yeah.
So like, here's a really good example, right? So Karlak, I don't know if you ran into her, but you've probably seen her. She's the big red barbarian lady, tiefling.
I think we scrolled past it on the NPC list.
Okay, you know what? I'll just get you a fucking photo.
Yeah, I looked again. I looked at all the playable options.
Okay, so that she is a cool demon looking lady that broke out of hell bondage, right? She was having to work for devils. It sucked ass. She broke free, so she's real like, you know, freedom and good times and all that shit, right? I was playing as an Oathbreaker Paladin because I've decided to be a piece of shit, and I used Control Undead, which is a domination spell, right? Casting it in her presence removed half of my approval with her.
Whoa.
Because she hates it.
Yeah.
She hates it so much. I'm like, lady, I'm controlling a corpse. But even that is like, no, bad to do.
Yeah.
Right? There's characters in your party. Freedom. There's a character in your party that is like terrified of wolves. So if you're playing a druid and you wild shape into a wolf, they'll freak the fuck out. Right? Just there's so fucking much.
And I mean, and that's the kind of shit you just gotta hit organically.
Yeah.